The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's September the 12th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by the Monday morning quarterback, Matt Shodell, who's still on a rampage to convince everybody that he knew all going into the Texas A&M game, and Stephen Wagner, as we discuss the news of the day presented this morning by Caneswear, your destination for all your Hurricanes merchandise needs. Caneswear has a brand new location, same shopping plaza, but new address at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. More square footage, biggest Canes store that's ever been created. So make sure you visit Caneswear on your way to the stadium on Thursday night, and we'll talk a little bit more about Caneswear later. But guys, the preparations now shift to Temple, and we had the chance yesterday to talk to head coach Mario Cristobal. Actually, he had a few media appearances on Tuesday, and then we spoke to Lance Guidry, the defensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator. Both of them had some interesting things to say in just putting the Texas A&M game to bed. But all in all, I would say that they were very, very pleased with what their individual respective units did in the ball game for obvious reasons. Shannon Dawson, start to finish, could not say enough positive things about his offensive line. And he said the offensive line made everything go on Saturday, that Tyler Van Dyke did not get touched once in that ball game. And he said that it was the best offensive line performance that he had seen in his entire coaching career, which I thought was a major statement. And Matt, let me go to you so you could tell us that you saw it coming, that you knew that offensive line was going to play like a bunch of all pros ready for the National Football League, that Texas A&M's defensive line, one of the best in all of college football, was not going to lay a hand on Tyler Van Dyke. Go, Mr. Shodell. Tell us all about your great wisdom.
I mean, I don't know what the hell you're doing this morning over there, but I don't want any of it because it's probably illegal. Okay, the offensive line was a question mark. They totally redid it, and it's been great. It's been great. You know, Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal. This is why last year I predicted the offensive line was going to be really good, better than people thought, because of them. You know, and then it was awful. So now going into this year, I'm like, you know, they're like, you know, Alex Mirabal is supposed to be the best offensive line coach in the country, and Mario Cristobal is the best head coach offensive line coach in the country. Like, so was last year the aberration? And this year is going to be great. Like, who knows? And it's been great. It's been great. This offensive line is awesome, and that's why Shannon Awesome is looking great too. So, you know, the only thing that's funny is it turns out, according to Shannon Dawson, it turns out Alex Mirabal is actually the offensive coordinator, right? Did you guys know that? I was not aware of that until Shannon Dawson told me that it was Alex Mirabal's play on the Jacoby George 3-yard touchdown.
He saw it at the Super Bowl last year. He's as bad as you, Shodell.
Apparently Alex Mirabal watches he has free time. Unlike a coordinator or head coach, he has free time to watch
the Super Bowl like all of us. The Kansas City Chiefs ran the exact same basic play.
I can't imagine what that, you know, this is how I picture it, okay? I picture this, you know, Alex Mirabal is tiny. I picture him like sneaking into the play calling for the game meeting with like a piece of paper, you know, with the name of the Kansas City play. Google this, guys, Google this. See if we think we can use this. I'm trying to do his voice. I can't do it very well. And they Google the play, and they're like, you know, I don't know, Alex. You know, oh, come on, it's gonna work, you know. And then they're like, fine, whatever, you know. And then they're like, you know, let's just make Alex Mirabal happy for once, you know, because Alex Mirabal is like me. He's always angry. Whenever you see him, he's just yelling at people, just like me. And they made him happy. They ran his play, and it worked. It was a miracle. Just like Matt Shodell calling the outcome of Texas A&M as a Miami win in a high-scoring game. Another miracle. Alex Mirabal and Matt Shodell have a lot in common today.
I do not remember you calling the outcome.
Yeah, I know you didn't. That's why I sent you a clip of it. I'm not kidding when I say, like, when I'm sitting in that press box, when that game's kicking off, and I could fast forward to 3 hours ahead, if I'm being honest with myself, I'm going to be surprised if Miami loses. Just because they've worked so hard for this. Texas A&M is not that good. Okay, everyone's acting like they're this unbeatable. They have so many 5 stars and 4 stars. They were 5 and 7. They're like okay, like they're okay.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick, Matt, and then I'll let you obviously continue. Why are they not that good? They've recruited like freaking maniacs there. They have a roster full of 4 and 5 stars. Why are they not that good? They have an elite coaching staff. Where's the problem with Texas A&M? You've studied them incredibly.
It's hilarious for you to ask a question like that. Miami's had 4 and 5 stars for 20 years.
Okay, but why is
talking about? They have 4 stars. They have 4 stars. How could they go 5 and 7 and not win 50 games every year? It happens, man. Like it happens. They have a secondary that has 1 returning starter. They have a linebacker with 1 guy who's decent. They have a great defensive line, but they only rush 4. They don't do anything crazy. Miami has upgraded a lot of different positions, and Miami has a good matchup, offense versus defense, and they have a chance with this crazy defensive scheme to maybe disrupt some things and win probably in a shootout, quite honestly. But my point is, I get these feelings, not emotional feelings. They're precognitions. And my precognition is often right. Like Middle Tennessee, you don't see some things coming, right? But like Miami against Florida State, I'm showing up for games over the last 19 years, and a lot of them I'm thinking, okay, they're probably going to lose. Or, okay, they don't have a real good chance of winning. Like, I'm telling you right now, I'm already feeling, okay, like tomorrow when I'm sitting in that press box, like when that game kicks off, my feeling is going to be that I would be surprised if they lose. Like, I think they should win. It's going to be a packed house, except for the tens of thousands of empty seats for people who can't pay for parking, according to Gary. No, it's going to be a great atmosphere. And I just happen to have a lot of faith in Mario Cristobal and what he's trying to accomplish. You combine that with the upgraded roster versus a Texas A&M team that I don't think is real good. Like, I think Miami's, if this was North Carolina at North Carolina, if this was Florida State at Florida State, like those 2 games, I'm gonna be sitting there like, okay, before the game, not real optimistic. But I've watched tape on both these teams. I know the Miami team quite well, and I just think they're gonna win. Like, I just have this feeling. I know you want to explain it. I can't put a rational data point on it because there is no such thing. But somewhere in my brain, which is obviously somewhat defective, all of you out there know that, it's telling me that Miami's going to win.
Are you happy now? Okay.
Who is that clown? Who is that clown? Who's the clown who's always so negative and so wrong? Who is that whack job?
I'm going to wear flamingos for the rest of the show, okay? Because you proved your point. Okay, you predicted.
I'm just more worried that you didn't remember that I said that. That's what I'm worried about. That's why I sent it to you. I don't care about you playing it or being right.
I don't remember you ever getting anything right. So
I don't care.
Like, why would I remember that?
Well, I got last year's win total right.
Steven didn't remember.
I didn't get it right, but I got it I was on the lower end, so I was more right. I'm usually more right than other people. Let's put it that way. I'm never right, but I'm usually more right. Let's be fair. That's true. I'm going to take credit for being more right than other people.
All right, so fine. So you called it. You showed us.
Listen, nobody should listen to me. Nobody listens to me in my own house. Why would anybody out there in the YouTube country listen to me anyway? I just got it right once. It's amazing. I'm going to celebrate it because it's the one time I'm right.
All right, but anyway, let's get back to new business, and that is what the coordinators had to say. And so Shannon Dawson says that is the best offensive line performance that he has ever seen in his entire career. And, I find that like totally amazing. I mean, it really was pretty good, but I mean, he's coached football for a long time. It's a new offensive line. Pretty shocking. And Steven, you can weigh in on this. When they're getting Malgoa to come in, when they're pulling Javion Cohen and Matt Lee from the portal, and we're covering all of that, like, did you see this coming to where this line by the second game of the season would be so good that Shannon Dawson is calling it the best he's ever had on one of his offensive units?
Well, I think Shannon Dawson might be just kind of in love with the 48-point total that his offense put up last game, because honestly, whenever I saw the offensive line, I thought they were tremendous in pass protection. Tyler Van Dyke had all day to throw, and you saw he can really manipulate a defense whenever he has that kind of time in the pocket. In the run game, I definitely thought that they had like some very reasonable room for improvement. But with Shannon Dawson's offense, he's a pass-first guy. He's at his most comfortable whenever he's able to let Tyler Van Dyke just drop back as many times as he wanted and throw for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half, or whatever Tyler had in that half. Dawson really is his happiest whenever he is able to just sit back and throw the football. I mean, that goes back to, his foundation as a grad assistant for Hal Mummy back whenever he was at New Mexico State, whenever he was young and still starting out as an offensive coordinator, or starting out as an offensive coach. You look through everywhere that he's been as a coach. And I mean, even looking at Dana Holgorsen at West Virginia and his time under Dana at Houston, again, still a big play, pass first down the field sort of guy. And even whenever he was under Tommy Tuberville at Texas Tech, I mean, Texas Tech very, very famously has always aired the ball out. Texas Tech kind of epitomizes that idea of a pass-heavy offense. And so I think the way that Shannon Dawson looks at this is, hey, we were able to do exactly what I wanted to do most, which is throw the crap out of the football. Now, Mario Cristobal being Mario Cristobal, he is always going to have some sort of imprint in the run game in any team that he has, because that's what Mario really wants to do at his heart. He wants to load up the line of scrimmage as best he can, and he wants to be able to pound the football down your throat. That is his MO. That is what he really wants to do. And frankly, that's what his best teams have always done. This year, I think it could look a little bit different. And in a really surprising move over the offseason, I think it kind of showed, or I think bringing Shannon Dawson in showed that Cristobal is kind of willing to change. He's willing to have an offense that looks a little bit different. He's okay with saying, yeah, okay, let's drop back. Let's be a little bit more creative on offense. We don't need to be nearly as vanilla, just pounding the ball up the middle with the inside zone. We can sit back and throw this thing because, frankly, I think we're seeing now that Miami really does have that capability. I had some questions, as I know all of us did, about the receiver position. That looks to be vastly improved this season. I mean, it's just complete night and day from where Miami's receivers were a year ago. And you couple that with a creative and aggressive passing attack, and I think things shape out pretty well. So I know this is a very long-winded answer, but as far as the offensive line goes, I can see how Shannon Dawson would say that's the best offensive line that he's ever had, because Shannon was able to do exactly what he wants to do at his heart, and that's throw the football. And whenever you have all day to throw, regardless of how you're looking in the run game, you're probably going to say, yeah, our offensive line looked pretty good.
All right, so let's take a deep breath here. So Mario Cristobal had Justin Herbert at Oregon, okay? And yes, he loves to pound the football. He wants to prove his physical superiority over you. No question about it. He was like that as a player. He was like that as a coach. He was like that as a little brother. When he was playing, whatever little kids play with Lou Cristobal, who is an avid watcher of the show. So shout out to Lou. Good morning, Lou. But he had Justin Herbert at Oregon, and that got him used to the dual threat offense without question. And Tyler Van Dyke, the way he played on Saturday night, and I'm not going to proclaim him Justin Herbert just yet, but it was a very Justin Herbert-like performance. And he was very accurate. He wasn't touched the whole game. So you have to give him credit. But, so coming back to the press conferences yesterday, I didn't get the impression that they found a whole lot on offense, that they felt like, oh, my God, we got to work on this. Defensively, I'm sure they did find some things because it was not the same in the second half as it was in the first half. Lance Guidry pointed out that you had 3 elite offensive coordinators in the coaching staff of Texas A&M. When you factored in Bobby Petrino, Jimbo Fisher, I forget his first name, Chaney, who was the OC at Georgia once, is an analyst in that program. And I'll even throw James Coley in there, who's been an offensive coordinator at Miami and at Georgia. You got a lot of guys that have designed a lot of offenses and called a lot of plays on that Texas A&M coaching staff. They made some adjustments at halftime, and they had, like 287 yards of offense in the second half. And, Lance Guidry was not having his way with the Aggies the way he was in the first half. But the difference was that the drives were getting stopped by turnovers and things like that. And they were able to keep the points down and obviously win the game handily. But so Matt Shodell, he of everything right, went into the lab and took a look at that second half. And he came away with some ideas on how Lance Guidry will now have a challenge because other teams are likely to take a copycat approach from what Texas A&M did in the second half the other night. And Matt, turn the floor back over to you so that your legion of fans can continue their bowing and salutes. And give us a little bit of a synopsis of what you found when you reviewed that tape and what you think other teams are going to try to exploit as they move forward, which would lead to improvements that Lance Guidry is trying to make this week as the team gets ready for Bethune-Cookman.
Well, I'm going to caveat this, which isn't even a sentence. I'm going to caveat this with Lance Guidry is not your typical defense coordinator we've seen at Miami ever. He is a defense coordinator who basically looks at what he doesn't just look at his defense. He looks at the other team and he says, what do I think they're going to do to me? So as I'm going to now talk about what I think other teams are going to do to him, keep in mind, he's already got the wheels churning about what he'll do differently now that Texas A&M has shown there's some issues, and I'm going to talk about what the issues are, with these particular formations and things that you can do against his defense. He's going to find an answer for it. I have faith in that. But now, with that said, A&M in the first half, Guidry did not do, as we talked about yesterday, did not do what he did against Miami, Ohio in terms of constantly 7 at the line, 7-8 in the box, dropping, a defensive end and a linebacker running full speed backwards, trying to cover people or into zones. He didn't do that as much. He still did it. He mixed it in, but he didn't do it constantly like he did against Miami, Ohio, because he knew Texas A&M's smart offensive coordinators, they're going to have found an answer. If I keep doing that, they're going to already know what they're going to do against that. So I'm going to do something different, which he did. He took a more conventional approach and blitzed corners a lot and blitzed different places that he didn't do against Miami, Ohio, which is great. So he'll have an answer. But with that said, the biggest problem and what Texas A&M did in the second half and Miami never was able to find an answer for on defense was, and you know what, and kudos to Lance Guidry, because he literally told us it. Like we talked about the same thing yesterday. I said when they went jumbo and threw out of it and did play action out of it, Miami had a lot of trouble. And it's exactly what he told us. He told us when he said when Texas A&M went to 12 personnel in the second half, that's when we had a problem. He said they were all 11 in the first half. And literally, he literally said that is the problem. The jumbo sets where they are either doing pistol, shotgun, whatever, like that defense doesn't quite know how to react. And on the website this morning, we have 8 different plays, only from the second half, 8 different plays of 10 plus yards given up on every single one of them. And you can clearly see that on the majority of them, it's 12 personnel. And it's passing. The biggest problem right now that I see for Miami, and forgive me for mentioning Kevin Steele, but he said it last year, eye discipline, right? What Texas A&M really should have done more of in the first half, and I'm sure that they already know this, a lot more play action, because that defense at Miami was so gung-ho to stop the run that the second that quarterback had his hand out to hand off the ball, those linebackers were either frozen or running up. And they didn't care if tight ends and running backs and receivers were going by them because they had 2 safeties high. But even with people that they know are behind them, there's gaps, right? There's clearly a play you could see this morning where on one of the play action fakes, James Williams is running up with the guy he's supposed to be covering going right past him, okay? There's another one where Francisco Mavagoa is a step late coming over off play action, and he's not even close to the running back on the touchdown catch. There's going to be running backs and tight ends are going to cause all kinds of problems out of jumbo sets as receivers. And we all know Florida State has a pretty good tight end who can catch the ball. Those teams that can throw the ball and have some decent pass-catching tight ends and running backs, that now is my new concern. Now, it's on landscape. People say, Matt was so worried about the wide receivers, in this game. And And they did a great job against the wide receivers, a fantastic job against the wide receivers. And there was legitimate reason to be, of course. You don't know with Miami's cornerbacks how they hold up. Obviously, I had said Miami has the best safety duo in the nation. Gary disagreed at that time. Now maybe he agrees. But the corners were a big question mark. And I hate to tell you,
I didn't disagree. I didn't disagree. I said they had to prove it that they are.
And I hate to tell people this, because as good as Jaden Davis played, Pro Football Focus charted his coverage plays. He was terrible in coverage at Oklahoma, and they targeted him 5 times against Texas A&M. Texas A&M targeted him 5 times in the passing game, and they went 4 for 5 for 78 yards with a touchdown. But what Jaden Davis does really, really well, and what Lance Guidry recognized, they put him at safety. Lance Guidry put him at safety and actually put Cam Kinchins essentially as a stand-up defensive end on one play late in the game. And he said yesterday that he might use Jaden Davis as a safety if Cam's out for a significant amount of time, because what Jaden Davis does amazingly well, and you could see it clearly on some of these plays, is he runs when somebody has the ball and he knows he needs to get that guy down. He is as good as you will find as a cornerback in the nation. He hits hard for his size. He is explosive in his first step to get there fast, and he wraps up tackles. He can actually tackle. What he can't do so well, I'm sorry, YouTubers, what he can't do so well is man-on-man cover. But Lance Guidry can disguise that a little bit. And guess what? That's why they didn't have him as the first-team cornerback in the first 2 weeks of fall camp that we could watch, right? They tried him at corner. They didn't love what they saw. They moved him to nickel. They put the Corey Couch at corner. They had him with the second team for a while. And then they're giving him a chance now. But he's just, I'm sorry to say, he's just not great technique-wise in coverage. He's just not. It just is what it is. But the other stuff he does is so off the charts amazing that it more than makes up for some of the coverage issues. And it's on Lance Guidry to figure out how to sort of mask his deficiencies and let him do the stuff he's great at. And you saw in this game that he did that. Lance Guidry did that in this game. He put this guy in perfect position to run up and make stops on 2 key third down plays where he made the tackle to stop the guy a yard short of the first down. He put him in position to get in past the line, get a helmet on the tackle on the ball of Amari Daniels and knock that ball free. Those 3 plays, 2 third down stops and that fumble, if not for that, this game is going down to the wire, to overtime. It could, who knows what happens. Like those 3 plays that Lance Guidry put Jaden Davis in position to make those plays, Jaden Davis made those plays. And in my opinion, he won the game as much as anybody else. Like you could say Tyler Van Dyke won the game. Jaden Davis won that game just as much as Tyler Van Dyke with some of the plays he made.
Whoa,
I mean, he did. It's a fact.
It's a huge statement, but he did. He had a hell of a game. I give Matt a hard time, no secret. He deserves most of it. But he's been doing just a phenomenal job on these film analysis over the last week or so. And this is another one that you guys really want to make sure you check out. It'll give you great insight into what happened in the second half the other night and what Miami is working on here this week. And they'll continue it next week as they get ready to go to Philadelphia and play Temple, because they're going to have to shore these things up by the time they get certainly to North Carolina. And it doesn't mean they're just penciling in W's against, Bethune, although Mario just barked like crazy at somebody in the press conference yesterday who suggested to him that he might be, taking Bethune-Cookman lightly and thinking about playing a lot of people in the game. So he's not, but
and by the way, sorry, Jaden did not give up a touchdown. 4 for 5 passing against him for 73 yards, no touchdown. It was that 44-yard play I was thinking about. It wasn't a touchdown. So
yeah, not a touchdown.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they are going to be working on just shoring up some of the things that were exposed in the second half. And listen, like you have 3-4 elite offensive coaches on the other sideline. They are going to make halftime adjustments. I mean, that's just typical football. And so it's not panic city in the defensive meeting room, certainly after a big victory like that. But the good thing is there's an awareness, I think, that some things may have gotten exposed a little bit, and Lance Guidry can kind of late at night when everyone's gone home, he could kind of go back into his factory and manufacture a few little different approaches to some of those things as Miami moves forward in the season. So all good there. So we've got that on the website today. We've got all the coaches' press conferences. We're going to be speaking to some players today. We'll start bringing some of that to you. But more than anything, these next few days, we are going to try and give you guys a lot of recruiting coverage and give you a feel for what's going on in that arena. So we're going to get to that here in a minute. But before we do, let me take a moment here and talk to you guys about CaneSport. And let me start out by putting a picture of their new store up on the screen. That is the new CaneSport, and they've opened a much larger store in the same shopping plaza that you've become accustomed to visiting through the years. At CaneSport, they have the largest selection of Miami Hurricanes gear in town, more gear than you ever could imagine. And the season's in full swing now. You want to be all decked out, you can go to CaneSport, get your t-shirts, jerseys, polos, hoodies, hats, flags, decals, magnets. They have all sizes for men, women, kids, and babies, and they even have gear for pets. Want to tailgate Thursday night before the Bethune-Cookman game? You can go by CaneSport. They'll hook you up. They got tents and tables and chairs for all of your tailgating needs. They even have gear for the Dolphins. Boy, the Dolphins look good on Sunday. Big win in San Diego. The Panthers will be starting their season soon enough here, trying to make another Stanley Cup run. And Inter Miami Soccer, which has won 12 straight games and making a big push to make the MLS playoffs. So you can even get yourself some messy shirts and things like that. It's a great time to get stocked up at CaneSport, which is more than a store. It's an experience. And in that new expanded location, like I said, they have the largest selection of Miami Hurricanes items in town. So go to 2655 South University Drive. That's 2655 South University Drive in Davie, right next to La Spada Sub Shop. So if you're going to the stadium, you want some great big fat meaty subs to take for your tailgate on your new tables and chairs, you can go to La Spada while you go to CaneSport. And CaneSport is always open. If you live out of town, you can always go to CaneSport.com, shop CaneSport 24 hours a day. So the store, 2655 South University Drive in Davie, or CaneSport.com. Go to CaneSport, shop at CaneSport for all your Miami Hurricanes merchandise needs. Okay, so Stephen Wagner, let's get to recruiting here for a minute and talk a little bit about some of these stories. And you did an analysis that's on the website today, talking about how Miami's hammering of Texas A&M was just as important off the field as it was on the field. You spoke to a lot of recruits leaving the stadium on Saturday night, which formulated your opinion. That was the basis of that story. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we had the chance to catch up with, I think, about 25 recruits, maybe a little more than that. It might have ended up being after the Texas A&M game. And really just kind of wanted to catch up with them to sort of like see what the vibe was, see how these guys were feeling after Miami got their first win over a ranked opponent since Mario Cristobal's been here. And there was overwhelmingly a lot of really, really positive sentiment of, yeah, this is the product that we've been told for so long Miami is going to put forward with Mario Cristobal. But for so long with so many of these guys, it was kind of, they were kind of held in this state of, man, I'm just, I'm excited for this team, but I'm just kind of waiting to see what they're actually going to be. Well, after Saturday, a lot of these recruits have a really good idea of what Miami is. And I think that is going to help massively, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And Miami felt the positive ripples from that pretty much instantly. I mean, Wade and Charles, a 4-star 2025 guy from Palm Beach Central, committed to Miami like 24 hours of the game. You've got Xavier Restrepo and James Williams both tweeting at Jeremiah Smith, encouraging him to come down to Miami. Xavier even said, this is what we talked about, JJ. And that tells me that there are some very active recruiting efforts going on from Miami's own roster for Jeremiah Smith. There are a lot of people involved here. And I can't really remember the last time that I saw two starters, two very big and important impact players on a college football team pretty much publicly just court a high school recruit. Like just effectively come straight out and say, hey, man, we need you. This is what we're talking about. Guys, let's get you back to Coral Gables. Another guy that I had a chance to catch up with was Chance Robinson. And his sentiment was pretty much, man, this is what I'd kind of been waiting to see. This is what they had been selling to me in their recruiting pitch. This is what they'd really been hammering. This is what they've been saying, man, this is what we are going to be. And now the proof is finally in the pudding. I know Azubi said that on the show the other day, and I think that's a great way to put it. The proof is in the pudding. And that's the overwhelming sentiment that so many of these players are really feeling. And I think this is something that we are definitely going to see a positive ripple effect throughout the 2024, 25, and the 2026 classes. You've got guys like LJ McCray and Zay Mincy, who are both top 100 recruits who were speaking really, really highly of Miami as Miami really tries to kind of wiggle itself in there with both of those recruitments and hopefully nab one of those two guys, if not, well, I should say hopefully nab both of them from a Miami standpoint. So I think that was really, really valuable and really important there. And then obviously some of these younger prospects as well. I think for some of these younger recruits, it really is worth a lot to say, yeah, Miami is starting to put together something sustainable. Miami is starting to put together something that we think is actually going to last. You really do want this positive talk, this positive buzz going around in these South Florida recruiting circles that isn't only going to affect the 2024 guys, but it's going to affect 25 and 26 guys too. And I think that this win is definitely massive. And I think if Miami can prove, yeah, this wasn't a fluke, and they do go ahead and get off to that 5-0 start. And I think if they split one of those, if they win one of those two games against North Carolina and Clemson, I think all of a sudden this team, when it's on pace to win 10 plus games this season, I think things get very, very interesting and some really intriguing conversations start to happen with a bunch of really big time targets.
All right, so that takes on the website today. And one of the guys that we also take a look at is defensive lineman Kamarian Franklin. He committed to Ole Miss last month, but trust us, the Hurricanes have not stopped recruiting him and will continue to recruit him right down to the end. This one was really close. It was razor close. Miami very easily could have gotten his commitment. Went Ole Miss. He's from Lake Cormont, Mississippi, and gave Ole Miss the nod. But like we said, Miami will continue right to the end on there. Stephen, why don't you weigh in on that real quick? Kamarian Franklin was as big of a defensive line recruit as Miami had here through this cycle. Are there hopes to flip him a little bit later here in the season or maybe right after the season? Are those realistic?
I definitely think there's reason to think that there could be a flip. I'm not at all means saying that it's likely. I'm just saying that the possibility, I think, does exist because, frankly, he's keeping the door open for a reason. He's still having these conversations for a reason. And now he did go ahead and say, yeah, I'm locked in with Ole Miss. But, I mean, we can all kind of read between the lines and say, well, he's locked in with Ole Miss, but he's still having these conversations. That I think that tells us that he's keeping his mind open to this, anything can happen type of approach between now and signing day. And quite frankly, I think Miami is in a position where it has no choice but to continue to heavily pursue him. When you look at the way that this 2024 defensive line class is shaped out, so far they only have 2 interior line commits. One's a 3-star in Dalen Russell, the other's a 4-star in Artavius Jones. They whiffed on Justin Scott. They missed on Justin Scott. They missed on Cam Franklin. They missed on David Stone the first time around. And Miami knows, man, we really need help in the interior at the interior defensive line because that was a position that was kind of shaky last season. And it's a position that they didn't recruit particularly well in the 2023 recruiting cycle either. So I think that there is a lot of pressure on Miami. And I think Mario Cristobal knows as well as anyone, man, we really need help at the interior defensive line. We have no choice but to keep aggressively pursuing these guys. And I think that they are going to continue to pursue Cam Franklin right up until signing day, the same way that they're going to keep pursuing David Stone right up to the end. I just don't see a reality where right now Miami can simply just say, yeah, you know what? We missed, so that's kind of it. No, if you're Miami and you've landed, let's see, I guess right now we would be going on 3 true defensive tackles in Mario's 2 full recruiting cycles. I'm only counting the 23 and 24 recruiting cycles since he kind of just came in at the end of 22. They know, man, that's a position that we are going to need help at. And it's a position that we really do want to develop. I mean, for all the success that Mario Cristobal definitely had on the offensive line whenever he was at Oregon, remember, they had some pretty mean defensive lines too. Mario knows that these games are won in the trenches. Conference championships are won in the trenches. And I think he definitely understands that that means you need to bulk up your interior defensive line as well.
Okay, and then on the flip side, pardon the pun, we have a story today about Michigan trying to flip 4-star Miami commit Elias Rudolph back into the Michigan camp, where he initially was. Miami flipped him away from Michigan and got his commitment, and now Michigan, with him living up in Cincinnati, a little bit closer to Michigan, is working really hard to try to flip him away from Miami back to Michigan. Stephen, you spoke to him. Your thoughts on whether Michigan is a legit threat right now to the Hurricanes for Elias Rudolph?
So I don't know if I'd necessarily call them a threat. Because I think a threat implies that everyone needs to be on red alert here. Everyone needs to be on watch that this is something that could happen potentially imminently. I do think, however, that they are very real competition. Right now, my confidence meter is still overwhelmingly on the Miami side for Elias Rudolph. But he committed to Michigan for a reason earlier this summer. This is a staff that's recruited him for a very long time. Miami started with him pretty late. Miami didn't offer him until April. And then they kind of, went with the all hands on deck approach, made a really, really big push, missed out on his commitment whenever he initially committed in late June. And then they're able to flip him like a month and a half, 2 months later in August. He had real interest in Michigan. He had real interest in both programs. And frankly, the first time that he committed, whenever he initially committed to the Wolverines, it was not a very large margin. It was not an obvious and clear decision for him where it was just obviously, yeah, I'm just going to commit to Michigan. And that's that. It really was close. And I think the proof of that was the fact that he flipped to Miami like a month later. Michigan, however, they still think, man, this guy committed to us without ever going to a game at the Big House. If we get him to a game at the Big House this fall, we show him how this place can be rocking. Because I also hadn't realized this until I looked at a physical map. He is not a very far drive from Ann Arbor at all. So it is not inconceivable for him to take 1 or even 2 game day visits to Ann Arbor, as opposed to having to get on a flight and take what is probably a 3 or 4 hour plane flight all the way down to Miami to get to a game here. So I wouldn't call Michigan a threat, but I would definitely call them competition because I think the Wolverines are a team that's not going anywhere. And frankly, I think Michigan's going to be a program that we're going to continue to hear in his recruitment right up until the end.
All right, and while we're on the subject of flips, we've also got a story on the website about 5 recruits that Miami conceivably could flip in 2024. Make sure you check that one out. Miami got a commit 2 days ago from Wayden Charles, a 2025 wide receiver who's now at Palm Beach Central High School. We've got a story with his coach who talks a little bit about exactly what Miami is getting in Wayden Charles. So make sure you check that out as well. On a programming note, We got the CaneSport live show tonight. Azubi Charles will be joining me as we take questions and engage in conversation with the fans. So make sure you tune into that at 8 o'clock tonight. So much to talk about. We'll have the Lamar Thomas show Wednesday night, as usual, at 8 o'clock as well. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport, or otherwise known today as the Salute to Matt Shodell. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Gary Ferman. He is the great Matt Shodell. We thank you so much for starting out your day with us. If you like this show, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And more so than anything, come join the club. Come join our community at CaneSport.com. A lot of reasons to be excited as a Miami Hurricane fan. We want to unite the fan base under one roof and let everybody just enjoy a great season here together. So come on over to CaneSport.com if you're not yet a subscriber and get yourself a subscription. We'll see you next time, everybody.